Hello and welcome to today's tutorial. Today we'll be looking at basic brick stitch. This is a fun stitch that can be used for a lot of different projects. So let's get started. We will be using, as always, our big needle and our nice thick thread so you can see what's going on, and our favorite melty beads here. Easier for you guys to see what I'm doing. So let's get started. We're going to thread our needle. And we are not going to need a stop bead today because if you watched my last tutorial on ladder stitch, you'll see that we'll start with 2 beads woven together. If you have watched last week's tutorial, feel free to skip to the 3-minute mark on this video. So let's get started. Let's pick up 2 beads and then we're going to slide those down the thread, making sure that we have enough tail end so that we can work it back into the beadwork. We're going to go back up through that first bead, pulling it tight, and then back down through that second bead, making a loop. And I like to go back up through and back down. This just makes it a nice sturdy beginning. And you could see the beads should be right next to each other like that. You've basically looped through them to hold them together. So now we're going to pick up 1 bead. And we're going to go down, making sure not to get our thread. We don't want that. So back down and pull it tight. Don't get it stuck on your fingers. Then back up through that bead that we just added. There you go. Get our tail out of the way and pull it tight. And there we go. This is the start. This is ladder stitch. I like to go back down and then back up again. Again, this just gives you a more firm base to start with. If you have room with your beads, I suggest you do that. Now we're just going to keep doing this until we get to the end of the row, picking up 1 bead, going up through the previous bead, down through the bead we just added, and then back up through that bead and back down to get ready to start the next bead. Let's pick up 1 more bead here, and this time we're going to go down and up, down that previous bead again, and back up through that bead we just added. And that is our ladder stitch base. Okay, so now we have our ladder stitch. Now we're going to move on to the brick stitch part. So I'm going to pick up 2 beads for this first row of brick stitch. Pull them down, get them close to your beadwork, and then I'm going to go through the thread between this first bead and this second bead. So let's see if I can get this. Go underneath it, underneath the thread, make sure not to catch it, and then you're going to go back up, if I can get this, back up through that bead and pull it tight, and there is your beginning of the brick stitch. As you can see, the beads are offset from the row before, and that's how we'd like it. Let's pick up our next bead, and now we're going to go underneath the thread of the next 2 beads, and then back up through that bead we just added, and we're just going to continue that. We're going to put it underneath the thread and pull it tight, and then back up through that bead we just added. 1 more, underneath the thread, up, and through the bead we just added so that our thread is coming out of the top of that bead. And as you can see, again, they're offset. That's what we'd like. We want them to look like a brick wall. So they're going to be offset from each other. So let's start the 3rd row. To start the 3rd row, just like before, we're going to pick up 2 beads. We're going to go under that thread of the first 2 beads and then back up, Pulling those, and you can see the start of the next row will be offset in the other direction. Let's pick up another one, and just like the row before, under the thread, up through the bead, pull tight, pick up a bead, under the thread, pull it tight, pick up a bead, under the thread, up through the bead, and pull it tight. And now you can really see why it's called brick stitch. Our first row, our second row, and our third row are all offset from each other. So let's start our next row. We'll pick up 2, do exactly what we did before. Go under the thread of those 2 beads, up through that one right there, pull it tight. It should be offset in the other direction. Pick up another bead under the next thread, up through that bead, pull it tight, and we're just going to continue this till we get to the end of the row again. Just going underneath that thread of the row before it and up through the bead, and do that until you get to the end. It's pretty simple once you get the hang of starting bricks. Okay, so I'll show you one more row real quick. Just like before, pick up 2 beads, go under that thread of the row underneath and back up through your bead, causing them to be offset, and then just working 1 bead at a time after that first one where it's 2 beads. So we'll go through this real quick. We'll add a couple more beads, 1 more bead to this row, under the thread, and up through that bead to complete the row. Okay, I think we have the basics of this down, so why don't we speed things along a little bit and add the last 2 rows here before we finish up this tutorial. So here we go. Here's our finished brick stitch piece. As you can see, it's pretty sturdy, a lot less flexible than our peyote stitch here. See it, you can bend it, but it kind of holds its shape a little bit more and isn't quite as bendy. So this is why it's great to be used for earrings, pendants, pins, and other things like that you're looking for a little bit more substantial feel to your beadwork. So that was today's tutorial, basic flat brick stitch. I hope you enjoyed it. Go ahead and leave a comment below. Let me know what you thought. Let me know if there's any specific tutorial you'd like to see me do. And I just want to say thank you for coming to my tutorial. And until next time, happy beading!